Hello and welcome to the Perpetual Traffic podcast. This is your host, Ralph Burns. I'm the founder of Tier 11.
And I'm your co-host, Lauren E. Petrullo, the founder of Mongoose Media.
And we are so glad you joined us today for Frustration Friday. In the pre-record, we've just been bitching and moaning about like all our problems. So we decided we're going to do an episode on that. And I've had 9 hours of sleep, but I had a myofascial massage. I'm going to leave. This isn't a face massage. I had one yesterday that I feel like I felt like I was drunk. Like I had the flu and I was drunk, like without the booze, and slept 9 hours last night. Like my sleep thing was like, what the hell did you do? Like I'm monitoring my sleep. It's like almost like 8:58 or something like that total time. But you, on the other hand, stayed up until 3:30 in the morning at the karaoke bar. Now I know you weren't drinking, so you're not hungover, but you're just like, yeah, you were probably doing all kinds of other illicit drugs, but you're just like completely sleep deprived. So we're on opposite ends of like the energy spectrum here today.
I was like, let's be clear. I had two brothers. I had a brother fly in from Chicago and one drive up from the border to spend time with. So we were catching up.
I'll bet you were until 3:30. Anyway, so you're at VidSummit this week.
Yes.
And you saw a good buddy of ours, Michael Stelzner, who, when you texted me his picture last night, I was like, who's he? So sorry, Mike, if you're listening. I didn't recognize you because I was in my drunken myofascial state, but I woke up this morning. I'm like, that's Michael Stelzner. Yeah. So, anyway, we should do a podcast exchange with him because it's been a while. He's a great guy. Plus, he's older than me. There's very few people in this industry that are older than me. So it's like, I love that. Like I'm a young guy to him, which is great. He looks younger. That kind of pisses me off. But anyway, we'll set that aside. So you hung out with Mike, and what else happened at VidSummit in case some of our listeners did not attend?
Lots of things happened at VidSummit. I got an overload of free candy, free cookies, free everything. I mean, there's a lot of giveaways. I think there's probably close to like $200,000 in giveaways that were just like being passed out. Like nomadic book bags were being passed out the way Oprah gives out cars.
Book bags.
So that's, like these like really nice entrepreneur book bags.
Oh, wow.
And they were just like passing them out. So there's like a lot of really great workshops. It's a conference made for creators. So the people that are attending these are like in the YouTube space. You're sitting in a room next to someone who has 1.2 million subscribers on YouTube, and all he does is make smoothies. I kid you not. This gentleman from the Netherlands has 1.2 million subscribers where you put the camera over the blender and you just see him put in natural food coloring. And then it's like this ASMR spin, and he's just monetized an amazing channel. There's another person that was discussed about who has 30,000 subscribers, and all that channel is getting in elevators, riding different elevators.
What?
I know. I mean, then you meet like a lot of people that have like podcasts and like massive followings.
Like
and,
you.
Like our podcast, which was really fun because I met a lot of people that listen to the podcast, and I was like, "Oh yeah, do you know about the podcast I'm a co-host of?" And like Perpetual Traffic, that's on my phone.
That's me. Wow.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
But like the event is put on by this gentleman, Daryl Eves. He does this like YouTube formula jumpstart training if you like want to grow your YouTube channel. And what's interesting about the event compared to the 2,500 other ones I've been to in the last 6 months is that because it's so creator focused, it's a lot of solopreneurs.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of doers, and they're explaining what they're doing. They're editing, they're filming, they're scripting, they're doing all the things. Whereas every other conference I go to, it's behind a team. And the person on stage isn't the one that's actually doing all the things all the time.
Yeah.
They're supported by a team. So there's like structure. It's almost like a corporate-like environment with all the other ones I go to. And then this is like pure YouTubers, pure creators, pure like all I do is thumbnails. All I do is video editing. It was like so mono-focused on YouTube. It was a really, really interesting item. And then you had massive massive creators that would bring some people behind the scenes because they don't need to be there anymore.
So they advertise it with, MrBeast on the first page. I assume he was not there.
He's been there in all the other VidSummits in the past, but Jimmy wasn't there this year because he was recording some reality show. So they opened up with this like big, I'm so sorry. Like, I really wish I could be there because this is like the family reunion. I went last year and I came back this year. I saw a lot of people I had seen before. I was with my friend Tim. He hit his 100,000th, that's a really hard word to say, subscriber on YouTube when we were at lunch.
Yeah.
My lift, it comes out worse when I'm tired.
Ooh.
If I oh gosh, it's hard. I could never be a real estate agent, Ralph, because people are like, oh, check out that 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
You just like stumble over that one all day long.
I can't say THS. I can't say the plural word for moth. Yeah. I can't be a real estate agent. Someone else has to have the same list. But if you sucked your thumb till 4th grade like me, then yeah, you can't pronounce a few letters together.
Well, at least you kicked it. 4th grade.
I tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I had to get a thumb sucking device applied into my mouth, which had these spikes. So if you put any pressure, you stabbed yourself.
That's fourth grade? Really?
I was sucking my thumb in 4th grade. It was time to stop. Look, fun fact, my thumbs are 2 different sizes. So the one that I sucked is long and skinny.
Yet another reason to go over to our YouTube channel at perpetualtraffic.com/YouTube so you can see the size of Lauren E. Petrullo's thumbs. Yeah, I sucked my thumb, but I think it was till 1st grade. This has now become a thumb-sucking episode. It's great. My mother put just short story, rhubarb, the plant?
Yeah.
Well, the leaf. Apparently, it's not poisonous, but it's really, really bitter. So she used to rub my thumb with the leaf of rhubarb, and that's how I got to stop sucking my thumb. So for all you parents out there that are listening in the YouTube world, rhubarb for your thumb-sucking kids, if you can say it right.
See, look at that. My lisp is getting contagious.
Now it's getting even worse. So, all right. So, you've been on this world tour here, but why did you go to this one? Did you actually get any business from it, or was it purely because you wanted to pick stuff up and learn about, YouTubers making smoothies in blenders, which is amazing.
Good question. I look at every event that I go to as either learning or earning, and this one was a pure learning.
Pure learning.
My background is not in YouTube. Yeah. This is an area that I think is going to be massively impactful for 2025. You and I have talked about how I think organic is going to really swing in the pendulum as just paid media becomes more and more competitive. And so this was a place where I wanted to know and understand the learning aspect. And when I went last year, I was in a room where I knew 0 people. And I came this year and had this family sense of people. And when you're not going there to earn I'm looking for clients or all that kind of stuff, it's a more humbling experience. And so it was I did it to be egocentric of I'm not smart enough on this subject, so let me be the dumbest one in the room. And I really was. But also humbling in the sense of I was the Michael Stelzner in that where everyone else was younger. And I'm not saying he's older, but this was there were kids running around everywhere, Ralph, which was great. And you see these really successful. I met this girl, Shia. She grew her account from 70,000 to almost 700,000 in under a year.
Wow. But doing what? What was her?
What took her off was Jaya, so it's spelled Xia, if anyone looks her up. Capreto, she wore Converse to prom. And it got 40 million views. So now she's doing all this content with commerce, and she's made this comedic alter ego. And it's opened up so many brand deals. And this is a 21-year-old whose life has changed. There's this girl, Jenny, she's 19 years old. She did the Jumpstart mentorship with Daryl. She grew to 1 million followers. I saw her speak last year. This 18-year-old that says, I can make anything viral. Now she's up to 5 million. Last year when she spoke, her mom was so inspired by her talk and what everyone was doing that she created a channel. This woman's mom is at 1.3 million subscribers.
Wow.
And she took action from VidSummit last year and grew to over 1 million subscribers.
I guess that's maybe a good question for the show here today. Is like, what is it? You go to a show like we're actually going to talk about all our gripes here, but maybe we'll just pivot a bit. And it's an interesting topic because like everyone tries to look at MrBeast and break down like why his videos are so popular. And I get it. We're not going to do that here today, but I do have an idea as to how he does do it. But what was the commonality that you found in talking to a lot of these folks to be able to get that many viewers? Because if I'm not mistaken, in Gen Z, like in top 10 as far as what you want to do with your career, being an influencer is in the top 10 and being a YouTuber is in the top 10. It depends on what poll you look at, but the point is like, this is a big thing and people are trying to figure it out and they're stumbling around in the dark. And you went to VidSummit where this is like the summit for this type of thing. What would you say coming from it is like 1, 2, 3 points that you can say, all right, everyone does this, maybe even including MrBeast, like what he does that these folks have in common with how they do what they do and how they've been able to be successful and get all these subscribers?
Okay, the one commonality was definitely consistency. Like there's a gentleman, he's from France, he spoke on stage, he's like 21, 22 years old, and he'd been doing it since he was 8. Jenny had been doing it since she was 9. So these are people that have like that consistency, and that second one would be like resilience or endurance. Because it's way easy to give up after 50 videos. It's way easier to give up after 200. There was a family that had a channel and they said they had this like huge dip, and for 6 months, their monetization had completely tanked. But this like resilience, endurance, and consistency in a different timeline than I think most people listening to this podcast review. Like you're looking at, oh, it didn't work for 3 months. Oh, it didn't work for a year and a half. These are individuals who've been doing it for 5 to 7 years. And the time and effort in that like 10,000 hours of study, they have gotten a master's before these individuals have graduated high school, and then have ultimately created a career that will make more money than 90% of the people their age that will then go on to graduate college.
Yeah.
So in MrBeast's channels, like his consistently, like they have content that they're just churning out. The other component besides like pure grit, and like these are individuals that like really gave up time. They didn't sacrifice money. They didn't delegate to someone else. They were like, I am going to make this work. They made no plan B. It was plan A or plan A. Yeah. All in.
Yep.
Yeah. Ships were never even built. They were like dropped off in this area. And the other component is when they got serious, the large majority, there are a few exceptions, of course, but they obsessed over the data, which I think is something a lot of people neglect. We've talked a lot about like the MPIs and looking at these numbers and understanding how it fits in. They are looking at what are CPMs for different markets they're entering, which is how much money they can make per 1,000 views. They're looking at what is the duration that people are watching the videos. When are people dropping off the videos? How might we make this video more engaging? They're testing thumbnails, and it's just this like competitive nature to always do better, because YouTube is set up for them to always do better. No other social media platform facilitates that type of A/B testing, gives that type of dynamic insight to click-through rates, through page views, through all the pieces. So it's a game. It's like you're betting on a horse, and you have all the stats for who that horse was bred from, how they had performed at previous races. And of course, with emerging technology, you can see outliers of other channels. So they'll study a channel that has like a 1.5 to 5x performance on one video and obsess. Why did this video serve as an outlier to this channel? Maybe the channel usually gets 9,000 views. This one video had 13,500. So they like study it because it's them. It's not delegating to someone else. It's again, in this like solopreneur space, it's such a strong, I will make this work society. Whereas like a lot of other ones is I will delegate the decision-making to someone else. And they look at a longer time period because they're all in. So they're going to keep going.
So all in, longer time period, resilience, endurance, looking at the numbers, understanding the actual market itself. Like for the guy with the blender,
Yeah.
the juicing guy, like there are so many people in the juicing space right now, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a validated market. It's a huge TAM now. I mean, it wasn't that way 10 years ago. I mean, I remember when Athletic Greens was sort of an also ran, and we were running ads
Mm-hmm.
for Organifi for like 5 years until they're, I can't really say why, but they had some issues with Meta. Anyway, the point is that, but they've gone to that, like they've validated this space. Like juicing is like a thing. Like that wasn't a thing 10 years ago. So,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot of competition in the market. How do you think that guy, I don't know what his name is, if you recall who it is, because that's an interesting one, because it's sort of like a video where you're looking down on the blender and all he's doing is you probably see just his hands, right? Like I've
It's
seen
faceless.
it's faceless.
You only see his face in the
Right.
profile,
Right.
and you
Right.
look down. Okay, I'm gonna find it. So I'll make sure that we share the link in the episode. Yeah, I'm like texting Pablo, who made the introduction, right now.
Yeah, which is fascinating. So we're just like using that as an example, as a proxy for how you actually do this. And I think first off, with anything, your point number one is one of the most important things, which is one of the things that I think everybody gives up at 2 to 3 months. Like you look at just in our space, there are, I think the last time I checked, like we can Google this as we're actually talking, but there were like 30 million podcasts, number of podcasts. And most of them, majority of them are 10 or less episodes. Most are between 5 and 10. And it's consistency is the key. It's everything is consistency and showing up. I told this to my son this week. It's like half of your job, half of your success, because he just got like a really good job offer, but he was in kind of a crappy like pre-sales position. Oh, the gym weed job, which we talked about here on the show. Anyway, like he got a promotion. And you know why? Because he showed up. He never didn't show up.
Yeah.
And at the very least, I said half of success is showing up. The other half is a lot of other things, but let's focus on the things that you can control right now, because you don't have the skills to really know what the other 50% is. The first part is showing up and being consistent with it. We've done this show now twice a week for almost going on like 9-10 years. It's like, why is it one of the 0.05 top podcasts on the planet and constantly in and out of like the top 25 in marketing and the top 100 of business? Because we've done it consistently. It wasn't just because we partnered with Digital Marketer and they had a big list when we first started. That certainly helped, gave us a boost. And if you can do that, you can partner with somebody who actually, you can get somebody to promote your stuff for you, figure out who's in your space that isn't necessarily a competitor, but partner with them. And then maybe they will start sharing. Like we had Robert Cialdini on here a couple of weeks ago. Like he's now promoting that on our social channels. Like, of course we wanted him on, but he's got a big social following. So that's going to help us. So it's like figure out who's also in the space, and then that'll give all this sort of rocket fuel. But it sort of goes back to, you got to show up as your number one thing. You got to put in, I don't know if it is 10,000 hours. Like I read Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell when it first came out. He's one of my favorite authors of all time. But that whole 10,000 hours thing has since been refuted. But I love the idea of it. Like a lot
concept-wise, whether it's 10,000, 5,000, I mean, you have people that are going to accelerate those timelines. But the concept, when you say it, you know it's dedication to a craft 100%. And it's focus.
100%. Did the Beatles do 10,000 hours in the bars of Liverpool before they hit it big in 1963? Like, I don't know. But they practiced an awful lot and played wherever. You know? So the point is, and that's one of the examples that he uses in the book. The point is that that's the first thing that gets in the way. And if you just do that, you'll outlast at least, I don't even know what the percentage is, but probably my guess is 80-90% of your competition, just by showing up, just by doing it consistently. We've had Alaric Heck on here before, and he started like when he was like 10 years old or 11 years old. He's like, I just did a video every single day on how to use an iPhone. And now he's got like 3 8-figure businesses or something like that. We'll leave links in the show notes to Alaric. But the point is like he showed up every single day. So I can't underestimate that enough. We can't underscore that point. And that's the hard part, is because like when you first start, like nobody wants your shit.
And think about it, like the kids. We're talking about people that have been doing this from 8 to 21.
I know.
That amount of time. Someone listening to be like, well, I have a job. They're kids. They have a roof over their head. All they have to do is homework.
Yeah.
So like the reality that's hard is you have people, when you're just starting, you're competing against people who've been not just starting, but they're still in the things. But if you're listening and if you are in a job and you have a different financial situation than a kid, like Jenny had $3,000 in her bank account, paid for her ticket, paid for her mom, paid for the hotel. That's all she had. She went all in, and $3,000 is a lot. There's a lot of people that are business owners that you can like invest in mentors. You can invest and hire resources that can help collapse a lot of that. That some of these kids who are they're paying with time.
Yeah.
A lot of other people can pay with money, but what happens a lot is when someone pays with money, they then delegate the drive and the vision. Yeah. Like they say, I paid for this, so I'm out. There's still the consistency and time you need to put into it. It's not that I paid, so I'm going to collapse 10 years of what all these kids had done. It's I paid. Now I have to also do it so that I'm essentially watching this at 2.5x speed. Mm-hmm. And where it's like you walk away, the only way you can for sure lose the game is by leaving.
That's a good point.
So
yeah, you definitely will lose when you leave. There's also a point where this is the hardest part, I think, of any of this. We kind of went down a different path on today's show, but that's okay.
Yes.
Is that like this showing up and being consistent and, not taking no for an answer, and just the whole idea of sticking to it. At a certain point, you kind of have to know that maybe you're on the wrong path. And this is a really, really hard thing to figure out. So, and I've used this example before, and if you've listened to this podcast for 8 or 9 years, you've probably heard me use it, is that my first online business was in the sales management space. And I was like, well, if I do this, like I'll learn how to do all the internet marketing stuff. This is back like 15 years ago. Like it's crazy when you think about it. And I was doing it while I was working for another company. I was like, well, if they find out about it, that I'm moonlighting, at least they'll be like, because I was a director of sales for the East Coast for a huge Fortune 500 company. I was making a ton of money. Like everything on the outside looked like it was great. So I started this online business because I read the 4-Hour Work Week, because my wife was like, you've got this big job, but you're miserable. Smart. You've met Jen. So anyway, so I read it and I started an online business. I'm like, well, what am I really good at? I'm good at like sales management and leadership and all that sort of stuff. So I created this blog, and then I just kept promoting it, sinking money into it. Finally, I got fired. They found out, they figured out a way to fire me. So I got fired. And then I was like, now I can work full time on it. And once I worked full time on it, I realized sales managers don't want any training. They don't want to learn how to get better. And it took me $12,000 in spend, which was a lot back then for me, to realize that the market itself sucked and they wouldn't pay for training. And if they did, their company would pay for it. They wouldn't pay for it on their own. And it took me 4 years to figure that out, but I figured I would just keep going. So I think you do have to have a market insight. It's like Hormozy talks about his buddy who, is super smart and was selling advertising, in like online newspapers. Mm-hmm. Great.
Wow.
But it was a collapsing market because people were now getting their news from social. So at a certain point, that market was not an expanding market. Now, could you make it in a very niche way? Probably. Could you make a big business out of it? Probably not, because most of the newspapers now have gone to a pay for play model, and then they use Google Ads or they use Taboola or some other network in order to monetize after people have actually paid for their subscription. The point is it was a shrinking market. So you have to be able to identify that unto itself. We had a client this week in the motorcycle space. Like we were talking about, it's really hard for us to make this work profitably because as we're ramping up our ad spend, this is maybe my Frustration Friday part of this, we're actually seeing your COGS increase. Like, how is that possible? He's like, well,
fulfillment.
Yeah, the fulfillment costs increase as they scale. I'm like, how does this work? Are you guys making money on the wholesaling? And we had a very upfront discussion, which I really respect the fact that they were very transparent. And we said, we need to cut back spend and see if we can help you profitably scale in a different type of way. The point is they are in a contracting market. They know motorcycle sales are down since 2020. They're not up.
Okay.
So it's these bigger market factors. You have to factor this in when you are being persistent, to your point number one. You have to also have a reality check. And that's hard to do if you're way deep into it. And we had a hard talk with those guys this week. And I super respect the fact that they were upfront with us and told us this. And we're like, all right, well, now this changes our strategy. Now maybe we can
for sure.
100%. We can go into different markets. But that involves rebranding. That involves probably retraining a new pixel. That probably involves maybe a new ad account. It could be a lot of things. You see what I'm saying? So there is something to it, but I'm just making sure people do try to take a step back at times and realize maybe I'm in the wrong. I'm climbing this tree and I'm going to make it to the top, but maybe you're climbing the wrong tree.
I love that example when you do. And I think what's really critical here is they looked at the data and they stayed committed to what their end goal was, but there was pivoting, and there's definitely pivoting that these kids were doing because they saw this content wasn't resonating, this content was. And it's just because you come across a hurdle doesn't mean the game is over. It just means, okay, you have to restart and race up the other tree. Whatever that situation is, I think that is something where you go back to the resilience and the endurance while looking at the data and obsessing over the data and knowing which numbers matter.
Which was number 2 for you.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I absolutely. There is something in your data that's telling you a way to expand your market, or if you're struggling, maybe there's some take an entire day and pour through your data. Go through every video, go through every podcast. We haven't really done this with Perpetual Traffic quite as much, but we need to take our own medicine. The point is we now, at tier 11, I now, our message today is way different than it was 5 years ago, because we realized, holy crap, this one thing, this is what clients really want. And so we're zeroing in on that thing. But that was in the data. See what I mean?
The data tells everything. It's a roadmap, and in the point of there is pivoting, yes, and there is abandoning strategies. There's this gentleman, this team, this person named Hope. I missed their speech, but it came up in the multi-language accounts and diversifying in different channels. And something that was really interesting is when they were looking at the data, they saw the Hindi language was so used, so they expanded to adding Hindi dubbing. But after about 30 or 50 episodes, I'm not sure how many, but they abandoned that strategy because while the numbers told them, hey, this is a good idea, it is not a tarot card with a clear direction. It is an idea that you can take the data from and you run. So they're like, oh, I see Hindi as a very important demographic that is coming to my channel. Let me provide better content for them in their language of dubbing. But what they found after so much time, and they ended up closing or abandoning that channel, is that the audience was coming to their English channel because they're looking at it with Hindi subtitles, but watching it in English because that's how they're learning English.
Oh, interesting.
So the Hindi channel did not perform as expected. So when you are looking at the data and you're seeing a story, it is important to create a plan with guardrails and KPIs that are going to dictate what does success look like. Yeah. If you're going to go in this strategy and you're going to climb this tree, success looks like at 50 feet up, you're starting to see the branches because for this specific type of tree, I'm not an arborist in any shape or form, but there's probably like branches that start showing up at 50 feet. And if you're like there and you're like, well, we're not, okay, get down, thicker. We went up the wrong tree. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
That's pretty good for a non-arborist. Not all branches are the same. They're thicker at the bottom than they are at the top, is my guess.
Good to know. That makes sense. Like my tree climbing days,
happy to help.
We're like limited to falling and only breaking an arm, not breaking a neck.
That's right. That's true. Don't climb any trees. You've already done your whole mountain biking thing. That was scary enough.
Nope. I'll sleep in a tree. Like I'm here for tree houses with, accessible handrails.
Yeah, accessible handrails. Yeah, completely handicapped. Well, this has been not the direction we thought we were going to go on this episode. Here we are, like talking about climbing trees, but the point is success is a tree. I mean, but then you eventually get to the top, and then what do you do? That's a whole other episode.
You see where money isn't growing on trees, but if you climb high enough, it's there.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Oh, hold on. I found the channel. So it's Joey, and his channel is Finita SNL or Finitas. So it's, I make satisfying smoothie bowls because life is too short to eat boring food. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this before and after. That's what those videos look like, Ralph.
Finita.
And it's 1.7 million subscribers.
All right, we're giving this guy like total props here. FENITA SL?
SNL.
SNL. Okay.
Finitas NL. He's in the Netherlands.
Got it, because he's in the Netherlands. Got it. All right, we're going to leave links in the show notes for that. Success does leave clues. So follow people who have been successful. So this is a good one right here. So I'm glad you went to VidSummit. I think you actually need to take a nap, though, before you head home. So make sure that wherever you're listening, you subscribe and leave a rating, of course. You can check us out over on our YouTube channel, of course, perpetualtraffic.com/YouTube, and join our Telegram group. It's an absolute monster right now. There's a ton of people in there and everyone helping each other, which is really, really cool. So check that out at perpetualtraffic.com/Telegram. And of course, all the links that we left here on the show notes, especially our guy over at on YouTube, finitas.nl. We will leave all those links in the show notes at perpetualtraffic.com. So on behalf of my awesome co-host, Lauren E. Petrullo.
Ciao.
Till next show. See ya.